England is sick, infected with greed and immorality. We are the cure. We steal from the rich. We give to the poor. Today on the Comic Book Report, Nottingham, Volume 1, Death and Taxes, from Mad Cave Studios. Stick around and check it out. Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today we're back in the world of Mad Cave Studios, taking a look at a book that I've been intrigued by for a while. This is Nottingham. Being a general fan of folk tales and myths, a new Robin Hood retelling or remix of sorts definitely caught my eye. I had a lot of fun with this trade paperback, but before we jump in and review, I just want to say a huge thank you to those at Mad Cave for sending over this paperback in exchange for this honest review. And I'd like to shout out the channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you're looking to pick up your own comic book collected editions, I highly encourage you to check out their website. You can find a link for them in the video's description, and if you see anything on that site you like, you can even use my discount code at checkout, The Comic Book Report, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support this channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now let's get started with today's paperback review. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The comics in this volume were written by David Hazan and illustrated by Connery Volk. The comics in this volume were published by Mad Cave Studios beginning in 2021. The volume itself collects Nottingham, issues 1 through 5. And finally, this is a standard size trade paperback collection with glossy print paper stock, a glued binding, and a total of 152 pages. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. I'd also like to do a brief mature content warning. There are several instances of violence and gore, along with a brief instance of sexuality. It was fairly minimal, but it was worth noting. Reader discretion advised. Okay, and here's our first dedicated look at the front cover for today's trade paperback. We have, of course, Nottingham at the top. We have a bloodied, helmeted mask there. And then at the bottom, we, of course, have the volume title, some creators, and then the Mad Cave Studio there in the bottom right corner. This is a very evocative image that I think definitely speaks to the piece we're about to review. I thought it was a really striking cover. No real complaints from me. Moving now to the spine of this paperback, we have the Mad Cave logo at the top, followed by the title of the work, the volume title, the creators, and of course the number 1 there to signify volume 1. We also have a couple little ornate symbols or images here and there. A really solid looking trade paperback spine that looks great on the bookcase. And now as we make our way to the back of the collection, we have a really striking image there of one of our central characters, a lot of red you can see here. We have a little bit of a description about the book, some accolades or reviews. We have the age rating, pricing information, studio logo again there at the bottom. Altogether, again, really well put together. I really like the graphic design work for this collection. I think it sells the collection well. And now that we've taken our look at the exteriors, I did want to go ahead and spend a moment to examine that glued binding I mentioned. As far as binding goes, this is a pretty standard paperback binding I've noticed. For me, with a collection this small, I didn't really notice any significant gutter loss. I know a lot of the panels had this white border as well, so everything was really readable and my binding was very secure. And now just for fun, I did want to showcase this volume 1 next to the rest of the series. So we have 3 volumes of the main series as well as Tales from Nottingham. So this is overall a 4-volume set, all from Mad Cave of course. They were generous enough to provide the rest of the series recently, so now that I've finished this volume 1, I am quite eager to jump into the rest of the series, and rest assured if you're interested, I will be doing reviews for the rest of these titles as well. So definitely consider hitting that bell icon next to the subscribe button to make sure you're notified when I do some drops, because hopefully these start coming out in the coming weeks. You can see the spines there, a ton of uniformity here from Mad Cave. I love to see it. Again, these look absolutely gripping on the bookshelf. And with that, let's go ahead and jump into today's collection. So as we open it up, we do have a fun little image on that front page there. Then we have a 2-page spread that shows titles, creators, things of that kind. We do have publication information pages as well. We have something that denotes part 1. And then after that, we do have the first issue of Nottingham. So again, this trade paperback includes the first 5 issues of the series. Being an indie series like this with an issue 1, you don't need to have any other context before jumping right into this work. Of course, a bit of cultural understanding about the Robin Hood mythos does help a bit, though I don't even think that is essentially required to enjoy the story you're about to read here. And just what is that story? What is Nottingham all about? Well, I alluded to it earlier that this is kind of a Robin Hood retelling, though notably it's from the perspective of the Sheriff of Nottingham, which is often played as kind of an antagonist, villain, or heavy in many retellings of the Robin Hood story. Here it does have that kind of fresh, remixed vantage point of, while flawed he may be, the sheriff is actually our primary protagonist, or I'll even say it maybe hero, and Robin Hood is painted more as a kind of vicious antagonist throughout most of this series. Along the way, we have some other notable faces like Big John, Maid Marian, the Friar, all of these, again, well-known characters to the Robin mythos, but again, kind of structured in new ways. I thought that this was already a really creative way to approach this property, as you're used to seeing Robin Hood as kind of a hero, and to see him in a more devious light, it definitely left me feeling pretty unsettled reading this book. I also want to just suggest that this is more of an adult-centric reading experience. It has a lot more mature themes, ideas, certainly graphic violence. Like I said, there's a brief instance of kind of a sexualized panel. No real nudity for the most part, but yeah, it's really kind of a mature read. It's dark, it's gritty. Even the heroes here with the sheriff, they're not squeaky clean. They have their own history, they have their own failings, and I just thought it was really fascinating. We have a backstory for the sheriff that he was kind of a veteran of the Crusades, and it kind of put him at odds with the institutionalized church, of which, of course, like Friar Tuck and Robin Hood are sort of aligned with. He has, a place where he's trying to maintain order in a kingdom that's a little bit at a knife's edge as far as kind of toppling into chaos or revolution, and he's kind of an outpost trying to maintain order, trying to stop this thieving bandit and his merry men. Along the way too, we have Locksley, who is of course Robin Hood. We get to see him in that more aristocratic kind of guise or alter ego. I really liked the interplay there. How Maid Marian was used here was also kind of fascinating. She's almost like a femme fatale kind of character, and while the art is really beautiful and highly skilled here from Volk, I think the way he does scenery and setting is absolutely immersive. It feels to period and all of that. I think the character models are all really engaging and unique, but I wouldn't necessarily say the characters themselves are beautiful. There's a kind of just lived in, almost like ghastly or ugliness about some of the characters, especially our main hero, the sheriff. He has like a weather-worn, really life is beat him up kind of face, and I really just think it serves the vision of this work. And I could say that about a lot of the characters. There is kind of a grimness to it that I really, really enjoy. There is like this kind of underbelly feeling to a lot of what you're reading. It's all about stopping a criminal. It just happens to be set in kind of an older era, post-Crusades, European situation here, but it really is ultimately a crime story, trying to stop a mass criminal, trying to stop a revolution, and you definitely get that in spades here. I like that our main character here in the Sheriff of Nottingham is really complex. He's layered. He's not overwhelmingly likable. He seems to be fighting for the side of right and justice, but his hands aren't perfectly clean, and he is so tragic and broken as an individual that I found him to be extremely engaging and really not like a lot of other comic book protagonists I've read recently. There's perhaps anti-heroic elements to him as well. I do think that putting him foiling with Robin Hood is also really, really interesting, especially seeing that guy, again, cast in a more villainous light. Overall, like I said, I think the premise is really amazing, especially the setup. Again, that perspective shift going from the hero's kind of now the villain and the villain's kind of now the hero, and kind of flipping everything that you're used to conventionally. That was enough to really engage me and hook me. The fact that we also had some, again, really detailed artwork here that is so immersive. We pair that also with some interesting plot lines. There is some political atmosphere to this as well, as this kingdom kind of hangs in the balance of sort of revolution. But yeah, I really liked it all. I like that it's set, 1,000 or so years ago. I think that that was really fun. And overall, I felt like I was reading a Robin Hood-ish story. But again, just kind of modernized, remixed, and yeah, I was just fascinated all the way through. I should also note, if you haven't seen it already, I think the way they choreograph action is really impressive. There's obviously quite a bit of blood, gore, it's really intense. Even the flashback sequences, everything, it's definitely a more violent work, but it really is, again, engaging, immersive. It helps add to that heaviness of tone and just overall feeling of this work. I think that this was really fascinating. One thing I liked about this first collection as well is I feel like a lot of great collected editions like this, I felt like we got the conclusion for the first chapter of a longer story. I don't feel like we just stopped at a random midpoint. I felt like the story, even within this first volume, reached its climax and had its resolution, even as we had some kind of, overarching details kind of teasing the next volume. And I think why that's exciting is if you want to check this series out, you don't necessarily have to buy the entire series up front. You can read this first collection, enjoy a quick episode or story in this world, and decide if you'd like to proceed from there. I think that there's enough in these 5 issues that you feel like you get your first complete story, and I do like that, and yet I want more. At the back of the collection, as you just saw, we had some character models along with a cover art gallery, and then we have a couple solicits for other materials from Mad Cave, and that really brings us to the end of Nottingham Volume 1, Death and Taxes. Again, this was a really fun and refreshing read for me. I am a fan of folk tales and urban legend kind of stuff in general. I've always been quite partial to Robin Hood, and this is unlike anything I've encountered. I had heard a little bit about this series before I picked it up, but really not much. I went in fairly blind, and I had an absolute blast. I can't wait to read subsequent volumes, but right now I think all that's left to do is to give this book a grade. For this dark, brooding, and intricate Robin Hood retelling, The Comic Book Report is happy to give Nottingham Volume 1, Death and Taxes from Mad Cave Studios a B. This was certainly a well above average read for me. I actually quite enjoyed it. I would say it exceeded any expectations I had of it. I really enjoyed, like I mentioned, that we got a full kind of first arc of this story here, but I also was left wanting more. I'm eager to check out the rest of this series, and I'm really thankful again to Mad Cave for sending it over in exchange for these reviews. You'll have to let me know in the comments, are you a fan of Nottingham? Have you read this? If not, what are some of your other favorites from Mad Cave Studios? Thank you for letting me know all of that. Thank you for taking this ride with me, and until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to give this video a like, that comment we talked about, and maybe check out another one of my videos on your way out. Thanks everyone, bye.